Now then, a bunch of fruitcakes, loonies and closet racists. That's how David Cameron described UKIP 6 years ago. Yesterday, though, after a row over fostering Labour and the Tories leapt to UKIP's defence. Education Secretary Michael Gove described them as a mainstream party. So are they? Well, I'm joined now by the UKIP leader, Nigel Farage. I mean, first of all, you must have remember that phrase from the Prime Minister, then the leader of the opposition. Would you like Mr Cameron to apologise for that? It's a bit strong, wasn't it?
He was asked to apologise yesterday because everybody said, from Gove to Ed Miliband and even Rotherham Council said, we don't believe UKIP are a racist party. So Mr Cameron was asked yesterday by one of your rivals, did he retract the statement? Initially, Downing Street did retract his statement that we were closet racist mostly, and then in a classic sort of omni-shambles, 2 hours later they retracted the retraction, and Cameron later last night said that not everybody in UKIP is racist. So he alone in British politics today continues to throw this slur at us that because we believe in not having our laws set in Europe and controlling our borders, that somehow that is racist.
Okay,
and if he wants an electoral war with my party on his immigration open door policy, he can have one.
OK, let me talk about the case as much as we can. Of course, there are children involved here, but we're going to hear more from the Council, as we know, tomorrow. But they seem to be defending themselves on the basis that we understand these children were East European. And look at your candidate in the Rotherham by-election talks about a problem in terms of unemployment, a problem being made worse by the number of new migrants from Eastern Europe.
Of course.
I mean, you do have a problem with migrants from Eastern Europe. Your party does. It's on your literature.
We have a problem with having a total open door to a very, relatively poor series of countries, something we've never done in the entire history of this country. And what we've had since 2005 is a massive oversupply in the unskilled labour market. And what that means is that at a time of youth unemployment of 21% in Britain, it does not make sense to have an open door. I want people from all over the world to come and work in Britain. Good, skilled people who come here on work permits, not people who come here, compete for unskilled labour, qualify automatically for job seekers allowance. That doesn't make sense.
But I mean, on this, we don't know the precise circumstances. I mean, could the council have a defence on the basis that then we understand the foster parents would have a position that they didn't agree that your parents or parent, whoever it was, should have been over in this country in the first place, but we'll bring you up in spite of that?
Look, we have always had a balanced policy on migration from the rest of the world. We allow certain numbers of people to come in. We've never had an open door before.
Too many East European migrants.
But that doesn't mean that you discriminate against any individual.
Okay.
If I was Polish, I'd come to London, for goodness sake. And if you talk about these particular people, whose identities have been protected, I'm pleased to say, they have been fostering for the last 7 years. They have been giving those children love, care and attention and the opportunity to thrive in this country. They've respected the culture from which they came, but they've also been doing everything they can to teach them English so that they can integrate and do well at school. Surely we need more people out there fostering kids like this, and I think the way this Labour-controlled council behaved is an absolute outrage.
Do you think the line should be drawn somewhere, though? I mean, no doubt you're a mainstream party, of course you are, and millions of voters approve that. But I mean, if these foster parents have been member of the BNP, they've got councillors and things like that, or far-left communists.
I'm not here to discuss the BNP. I'm here to discuss UKIP, which is a non-racist, non-sectarian party. Indeed, in next week's by-elections, one of our candidates is Jamaican-born. So the idea that UKIP is a racist outfit is rubbish, and I'm afraid this whole atmosphere, where even discussing numbers that come to this country is considered racist, has been stirred up by Gordon Brown and David Cameron, who have attempted to suppress sensible debate on immigration by throwing these labels at people.
OK, so much criticism of David Cameron on that. What about his stance at that EU summit being widely praised in many papers? You're smiling. He did well, didn't he? I mean, he drew a line and he wouldn't cross it.
Labour got this very badly wrong. The Labour press release was that Cameron was isolated in Brussels. No, he wasn't. Actually, the whole of Northern Europe doesn't want to pay any more into this budget, and can you blame them?
But David Cameron stuck to his guns, didn't he?
He did. David Cameron thinks it's a good deal for Britain for us to continue paying just £53 million a day as a membership fee. Now, that apparently is a victory. That's fine. If you think that's good value for money, you go on voting for David Cameron. My view is we shouldn't pay a penny piece to the European Union, because what we want with Europe is a simple free trade deal.
OK, do you think he's going to shoot your fox in terms of going for a referendum, and that might then marginalise UKIP's appeal come a general election.
I'm afraid my opinion of Mr Cameron this morning is rather lower than it was even yesterday morning. What he'll do, he'll come up with some sort of fudge compromise and try and give us an in referendum. Do you want to stay in Europe on the current terms, or do you want to stay in Europe on a renegotiated package? Whatever he does, it will not work. What the people of this country need and deserve is a very clear, simple choice. Do you want to stay part of a political union, or leave it and revert to a simple free trade
deal? Do you think,
deal?
even Labour could go for that? I mean, some of the soundings that have been coming out, then particularly supporting that vote for a cut, an overall.
Yeah, the party that gave away Britain's budget rebate suddenly what a cut was delicious, wasn't it? I think that the tide of opinion and the reason that people are now saying UKIP's a mainstream party, look at the polls. Up to 2-1 now. Majority in this country want us to divorce ourselves amicably from political union. So I'm expecting all sorts of promises as a general election hoves into view. The trouble is, they've made all these promises before. Labour before promised to give us a referendum and didn't deliver. Mr Cameron, in fact, made a cast-iron guarantee of a referendum. So I will only believe them the day that I actually walk into that polling booth and pick up a pencil.
Tell me about, lastly, about Lord Justice Leveson, his report coming out on Thursday. And again, Mr Cameron as the Prime Minister, if the recommendation is for some kind of statutory regulation of the press, do you think the Prime Minister should go for that?
I've just spent 13 years in Brussels and travelling all across Europe, and so I've compared our printed press to the printed press in Europe. In many countries in Europe, they've got very, very strict privacy laws. It is very, very difficult for journalists to expose corruption, dishonesty, sexual abuse, and I think that our press, frankly, is fantastic compared to what I've seen over there. And I think that to have a statutory body set up that began to regulate, perhaps even began to censor the press, would be a huge mistake. It would be laughable, I think, anyway, in the age of the internet. And I think it would be completely the wrong thing to do. Now, yes, of course, the press can...
But this is coming from a man who's had his phone hacked.
Yes, no, I'm part of the hacking scandal, and of course things have gone wrong in the press, as they go wrong in every walk of life and every business. But surely the whole point of this is the fact that I'm, one of the next group taking action against News International shows you that actually if things go badly wrong, we've got legal redress anyway.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much, Lee. Very good to see you there, the leader of UKIP. Well,